welcome to Unrehearsed Research. Today I'm here with a special guest, Alice Childs. Alice Childs is a professional genealogist and has also received her AG credential, the accredited genealogist, and specializes in the Mid-Atlantic area. So, hi, Alice.
Hi, how are
Hey,
you?
thank you. Good, thank you. Today we're going to look at a process that Alice goes through with people she works with to find someone new in their tree. And so on her website, alicechilds.com, she has a course called Research 101, where she goes through all these steps in more depth. But today we'll go through those steps on my family, and I'll share my screen, and then Alice will kind of guide me to go through those steps, and we'll go from there. Okay, and I've got my fan chart pulled up and Goldie May open on the right. And so, yeah, Alice, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, so when people are looking for someone in their tree to research, this is a process that's kind of for beginners. Maybe it's not your brick wall that you might want to work on. This is more for people who are wanting to learn how to research. So I always tell them to start this way to find someone to research. So I just have kind of a process and I use the acronym FAMILY. So the first letter is F, and so it's find someone to research. So in order to do that, I like to look at the fan chart and choose someone that was born about 1800. And then we're going to go through their descendants and see if we can find someone who might have missing family members. So
Okay, cool.
do you have any?
This Hazelton line is from New York, and so
Okay.
either of these would be great. I mean, 1784,
Okay.
1811.
Let's start with the 1784.
Okay.
I like to start kind of in 1800 or just a little bit before, because then you're seeing descendants that lived in the 1800s when there are records that, might be more available. So he
Okay.
looks like a
Cool.
good person. So then you can
So
just put him in the middle of the tree first.
I'll
Let's
put
go
him in the
back,
middle of
hit
the
the
tree.
back
Okay.
button. Sorry, I didn't guide
Yeah,
you.
I'll put him right
Yeah,
there.
just click that fan. And so now he's the center focus person. So to see all of his descendants, we're going to just go up and choose the tree view that's descendancy.
Okay.
Okay, so now you're seeing on the left him and his wife and all their kids. So let's see if we can see more descendants by choosing the tool icon and 4 generations.
Okay.
Okay, when I'm looking
Yeah.
at this view, I like to look for people who might have lived long enough to have been married and had children, but that
Okay.
have a straight line by their name, because if it's a straight line by their name, that means they don't have anybody besides themselves on the tree. It's just, so do you
Oh,
see what I'm
okay.
talking about on
Cool.
the
Like this
left-hand side?
Eddie has got a
Yeah,
left straight
yeah.
line.
Yeah,
But
but
you're
look at him.
saying,
He only lived for 3 years, so he
yeah.
probably didn't get married. So I like to just scroll
Okay.
down and look for someone who lived long enough to have been married.
Okay. So a
Um,
couple that we don't have the
yeah,
death date
James.
for.
Okay, so we could try one of those. We've got Jessie Gertrude there. She lived for
Oh, yeah.
1872 to 1912.
Oh, yeah. A long
There's a
time.
chance she might have never married. Sometimes I like to look at someone who might have a record hint as well.
Hmm.
But we can just choose any of those and see.
What about Charles? I guess if we find out that he died as an infant, then we'd have to backtrack, but we
Yep,
could
but let's
look at
just
that
check
one.
and see what we
Okay.
can do. So we found a person that we want to research. And as we go, if you are doing this, you want to keep track of this person. So I always like to write down their person ID number or record that somewhere. So
Okay.
I,
And then since I have Goldie May open, maybe I'll use that for this project
okay.
and just say that we're trying to learn more about Charles Fletcher, and then I'll copy his ID over to the project to save that in here.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Okay.
that way we can get back to him easily.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so the next step is A, which is analyze all known information about him. So it looks like he has a couple sources and it looks like he has some details on the tree. So I just like to look and see what information we already have. So it looks like he was,
Okay.
let's see, his birth in 1866 in Illinois. We don't have any other dates for him.
Yeah.
It looks like we do have a mom and dad and several children in the family. So, and it looks like
And
they
then
might have gone from Illinois to Nebraska. He lived in Nebraska in 1870. So that's all good things to take note of. I don't know if that's anything you want to write down or if you just want to depend on looking at it in the tree. He was born
66
in
Illinois.
1866 in Illinois. He lived in Omati Township, Dakota, Nebraska in 1870. And he was the son of, I like to add the parents. I just like to have that. So if I go to a different page, I don't have to go back to his page to look at it. I can just have it there to refer back to.
Cool. Okay.
Other records.
And on Goldie May, I end up doing it with this. I kind of look at just like parents here.
Okay. Okay,
So,
that's great. So it's
but
there.
I'm
So,
glad you said that though, so that I know how you're thinking about this. Okay, cool. So that's so parents. We got a couple of places. In fact, I think that place would be there too. Yeah. So
oh, good,
Illinois
good.
there,
That's
Nebraska. Okay,
awesome that
cool.
it's keep track of that for us. Okay. Okay. So then we can go to the sources and look,
Okay,
and
so
probably
sources.
his details came from these sources, but there might be extra clues we can look at and see.
Okay.
So it looks like
So
we've
really
got
two
two.
census records. Yeah.
Okay,
Or the
that's interesting.
same
One's for
year.
Charles W. Fletcher in the household of A. Fletcher, and the other one is the name is a little different. So I'm interested to see what the difference
So
might
there, and
be.
okay, so we're looking at one's in Wayne, Nebraska, one is in Dakota, Nebraska. Charlie living with an Abner and Frank. Charlie living with an AA or Francis. I guess that could be Frank too. So
Yeah, I wonder if there's
is
any
that,
chance they
yeah.
were in two different places when the census was taken or something,
Okay.
or if it's two different people. Let's just look at all the details and see how they match up.
Okay. So do you, yeah, where do you like to go from here?
Let's look at
The
the
image.
original.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just click this other one open too. Okay. So here's the first one. And I think right there, Fletcher.
So A. Fletcher, he was a farmer. He has real estate. He was born in New York. And what does that age say? 32, maybe.
32. Yeah.
If you scroll up, right? Yeah, you should.
32. Oh,
Okay,
there
so
you go. Okay.
32,
Yeah. So
born in
32.
1838.
Okay.
Okay. And the
And
birth
then,
date for the Charles is 3. He was born in 1867. That matches pretty closely to 1866, which is what we
okay.
had before.
Good.
Let's look at the other
And then the other
one.
one is going to be, oh yeah, Fletcher. Okay.
So he's age
Farming.
31, farming. He had $500 in real estate. And Frank, interesting, Frank here says is his wife, born in Illinois. Let's look at that other census for just a second. So we did have Frances. Says she was born in New York.
So the,
It's
yeah. So it's, yeah.
it's
Very
close. I
close,
mean,
but
it's
maybe
close.
not.
It could be
Yeah.
the same person. What was the date this one was enumerated? Does it say at the top of the page?
Is that
Okay,
1st
so
of
this one's on
February?
February 1st. What about
Yeah.
the other one?
The other one, oh,
23rd
23rd
of
of
June.
June. So
So
much
there's a
later.
chance they could have moved, right?
Okay.
So we're
And
just going to keep
he's
that in mind.
got more money by this time, $200 more in a couple months.
Maybe he
Yeah.
sold his land and purchased something
Okay.
in this new location.
Mm.
So let's just keep that in mind as we go. We're not going to do anything different with that, but that's good
Okay.
information to keep in mind. So
Okay.
let's go back. So we've kind of analyzed and looked at what we already know about him. Those were the only 2 records that were attached. So the next step is our M, which is I like to just look at a map and timeline. So go to the timeline tab
Okay.
and we can just see how close they were. Those 2 events were there. So he was born clear over in Illinois. And
Oh,
these
yeah.
are Madi. And so it's a fair distance away from one side of the state to the center of the state. There is a chance they could have migrated, but it would be great to find more information about the family before we
And I'm
decide.
wondering if this 1870 residence isn't one of these maybe wasn't standardized to the right county. Like this was Omadi, and then this was what did we say this one was? This was
Taffy,
Taffel. Yeah, I can't
Taff.
quite read that, but if I wonder if this 1871 is just Nebraska when it should have been the county.
Oh, yeah.
So
Let's
let
look and
me
see what that other one was. What was the
let's see.
locality?
Oh,
Wayne
Taff.
County.
Okay. So maybe I'll go put that in to the residents to make sure that the map is looking good there. So residents, and I guess I could put Taff, huh? Taff,
Yeah.
Nebraska. Okay, not coming up. I'll just go with Wayne County then.
You could type Taff Wayne, maybe see if
Taff Wayne, Taff Wayne,
Nope.
Nebraska. Oh, yeah, weird. Okay.
That is interesting. And if you wanted to, you could go look at towns within Wayne. Maybe we're not reading it right, you know.
Oh, right, great. Okay, so like, would you just go to Google Maps for that?
Yeah, you could, or you could just do, I like to go to the research wiki and do Wayne County and then say places within, but
Great
either
thought.
way.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's do Wayne County, Nebraska, and then maybe Taff is not the right word there. So then you're saying to go down to
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of the catalog
see
places
populated
within. Yeah, but populated
places.
places. Does it have on populated places? Did it have that? Nothing that looks even. So
Weird. Okay, yeah.
you could just Google
Yeah.
Taft, Nebraska. See what happens.
Wayne County, towns such as
Okay.
Taft. Okay.
Okay, it looks like it's a historic town.
Okay, that's good to know.
So
That'll
that's
even.
why Family Search probably isn't bringing it up. Although sometimes they do bring up those historic counties, but you could just put Wayne County and
Okay, so I'll go back and do Wayne County, and then maybe that'll. Oh yeah, so then we're a little closer there, aren't we?
yeah, they are a lot closer. Okay,
Okay, cool.
great, perfect. That's great. So they could have just moved within that few months that they were living there. So that's interesting. Okay, so I just like to
Okay,
look at the timeline. If you have more sources, there will be a lot more events, but right here we can see we only have a birth and residence. We've got 4 years worth of his life here. So we want to start looking now for additional sources that we might be able to find. So the next step is instant records, which go ahead and click back to his details page. So instant records are record hints, which there are none for him.
okay,
The other thing I term as instant records is just when you do a search on the little family search button there,
okay.
because family search will just search and see what you can come up with. That's just a way you can catch any quick and easy records that
So if
family
there's
search.
something really obvious, you would
Mhm.
use it. Okay.
Yeah. So what was his, did he have a middle
So
initial on
I don't
his?
think he
It
did.
doesn't
Just
have
Charles
one.
Fletcher.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it did find some census records for a Charles Fletcher, but that's so far in the future that we don't really know
Hmm.
yet.
Okay.
So let's just scroll down. We've got Charles B. Fletcher, parents, not the same. So I just like to scroll down for a minute and see if anything catches my eye with this. It
Okay.
looks like there are a lot of census records, and he's probably, I look at spouses or relationships, parents. I would be looking for
Oh
parents.
yeah. Okay.
Since we're not seeing anything pop right up, like here's an 1880 census for him with these parents, maybe we go back to his parents and just see if they have any sources attached to them also, just to
Oh, great point.
catch all known information about the
Okay.
family.
So I'll just open those in new tabs,
Mhm.
and then here's Abner, and then do you go to sources next,
Yeah, I
or
would go
okay?
to, yep, let's
Yeah.
see if we've got him. So we've got him in 1880. So let's see.
Yeah. Good point.
Abner.
Because he should, in theory, Charles should in theory be living there.
Yeah. So look, if you look at the members of the household down below, it looks like we've got Frances, who is the wife, and then Walter. We don't have Charles, born in
Yeah.
1866. So I'm guessing he probably died, and he would have only been 14. So
So he didn't make it to this 1880 census.
yeah. So at this point, if you wanted to, we could look for additional records and see if there are death registers available in this time period in Illinois. I'm not super familiar with, or
Okay.
Nebraska, it would be Nebraska probably. I'm not familiar with the records there. So we
Yeah.
can
So
go how we would go look at that and see if there might be a death register available. Let's go to the Family Search Research Wiki. And this is kind of the next step, which is look for additional records. So we've done FAMIL.
okay.
We're looking for additional records now. So let's go to Wayne, Nebraska. That was the county that they lived.
And then we'll go to Nebraska. And then Wayne was over here.
Okay, and I
Okay.
always like to
Yeah.
see if they've got the record finder. Oh, so the death dates, the beginning death dates were in 1904. So we're not going to probably find a death certificate for him.
Okay.
If you want, you can go back to just Nebraska. Let's look at the Nebraska
Okay.
page. And over on the right-hand side, in the beginning research on the right-hand side, there's a thing called Record Finder.
Okay.
You can go there, and that will tell you what kinds of records might give you the information you want. So under this vital events box, there's a death date, place, and burial. And
Okay.
it's saying vital records, church records, obituaries, cemeteries, and newspapers. So we could check some of those places if we want to see if we can figure out when he died for sure. So vital records, we
Cool.
already know didn't start. Church records, you often need to know a religion before you can start checking for church records. But we could, I think maybe cemeteries might be our best bet here. Maybe there's a find a grave or something entry for him in
Okay. Yeah.
Nebraska.
And we said that his father in 1880 was he still in the same place? I was going to check in that
Yeah,
1880
let's look
census
and
if he was
see.
still um, Stanton, Nebraska.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
he's moved to a new county. So we're probably going to be
okay.
either in Wayne or Stanton,
Okay.
Nebraska. If you just go to the map, it might show you on his page, it might show you how far away. Is that a
Oh
neighboring
yeah.
county,
Let me
or
do
is that
that.
it looks
Okay.
like they are maybe just migrating west a little bit throughout their lives.
Okay.
So we'll probably want to let's look at the record finder and see what it says for cemeteries for Nebraska. Just it says find a grave is a good option. We could start there. And if we don't see anything there, maybe we
Find a
can go to one of these
grave
other ones. And
in
he was born about 1866.
1866.
And I would change that to the exact to plus or minus 3 years, maybe.
Okay. Cemetery
Um,
location or
put Nebraska there because
okay,
I'm
not any
betting.
county, but
Yeah, I would just say Nebraska and then
okay.
search and see what happens. We see 3 entries, but all of them lived into the 1930s and
Oh, right.
40s, so
Yeah.
that's not him. Okay, so then we can go back. Yeah, the cemetery thing. We could also check Billion Graves or Nebraska cemetery record. We can just kind of go through this as we
Go through a
go.
few of these. Okay. Yeah.
And does Goldie May, is it tracking all these that we've
I
looked
hadn't
at? So
turned it
we
on.
can,
No. Yeah, I should have. I mean, I'll turn it on now for the rest of
okay,
our talking today, but yeah, I should have been logging
yeah,
these
so
as we
that's what I would
went.
do. I just
Yeah.
keep track. I looked at Find a Grave, didn't find anything, just so you don't go back and look there again
Yeah.
if you
You know,
go
and
back
I'll
to
go
one
ahead
of
and
these.
log that now and say, we checked find a grave and it was a
Okay,
thumbs
great.
down. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay. So Billion Graves.
Okay, it's
Okay.
coming up
So
with the same
yeah,
themes.
same people, huh? 26. So these ones died much later.
I'm just trying to think if we would go to one of those Nebraska. Let's try one of those Nebraska cemetery
Okay. Just to be,
things just to see what they've got.
yeah. How do you choose when you're thinking through
I
all
know
these
there's so
links?
many.
There's so many, right?
I'm not super familiar with the Nebraska cemetery records, but I always like to look and see kind of what they've got. Sometimes you go and it's like 2 cemeteries, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you can just look at a couple of them and see what they cover. Do newspapers. I don't know how well newspapers were. Like I said, I'm not super familiar with Nebraska research. We could try that to see if there was a newspaper notice or something.
Oh,
And if
yeah.
we don't find one there, I think we could just put a death date of before or between, when we know he was alive on the census and then when we didn't see him on the census. So we can go back to the record finder page and
Okay.
just click on newspapers and we can see what's available for newspapers.
Nebraska State Historical Society has 20,000 microfilms.
So
Oh,
I
a
don't
little bit
think those are
late.
going to
Okay.
be anything. So really it's looking like available records that would state when he died aren't there. The next step might be to figure out if the family belonged to a church and there might be church records. But I don't know if that's something we want to take the time to do right now. For now, I think we could go back to his page and enter a death date between 1870 and 1880.
Yeah. Anything else? I
I would
guess
put in the
that's,
place, I would put probably Nebraska. You could put
yeah.
probably.
Okay.
It lets you put that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Just so we're saying, we're not
Yeah.
100% sure, but we can just save that. And
That's
then
great.
that's
Yeah.
probably what you would end up leaving it as for this child.
Yeah.
It
And I
was,
guess, yeah, if I were to go through my tree in the future, I would see that kind of,
yeah, yep.
year range that he didn't live past 14.
Yes. So that's kind of the process. And sometimes you find things and sometimes you don't. So we can continue and look at this family and make sure that the other children in the family have spouses, or we can go back. So let's just quickly look and see. Just click on each of the other siblings on the bottom right there. Let's just see if they have spouses and children in the tree already.
Okay. And
We're
just different
here.
tabs. 1, 2,
Yep.
3. Okay. There's Walter. He's got 1 child.
Okay.
So Clara, 2 children. Oren, not married, no children.
Okay.
Oh, and
He only lived
6. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we can go back to your descendancy view and see what else you want to look at.
Did we look at Jesse? No, we didn't look at Jesse yet, but that was.
We have found someone to research. That's our F. So now we're going to just analyze all of her information. So let's just look at what's on the page here first.
And I'll just start a new project for her. Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at her sources and see, or her details on her page first. Sorry. It does have a burial for her. There's a find a grave. My first instinct would be just go look at the find a grave and see what her name was when she died. If it was her maiden name, that means she probably never got married.
So sources, find a grave.
Okay, look at that. It says Miss Jessie Gertrude Hosselton passed away at her residence. It does say that her services were held Sunday at the Methodist Church, which is interesting.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
If we wanted to, we could maybe go back to, this is where family members often give clues about the rest of the family. So if we wanted to now, we could see if there are Methodist church records. I'm sorry, I'm jumping back and
This is
forth,
awesome.
but
No, this is really good.
we could go back to Charles and see.
Yeah, I say we do it. Let's do Charles. And so we'll say that
Yeah, let's
we're
go back to the wiki and see
okay.
if we can find Methodist church records. So if you just click on Wayne, then we should be able to scroll down to church records. Okay, so there is, okay, that Nebraska church records, but it's too late. You always have to look at the dates.
Barely
It's
too late. That's too bad.
1975. Yep.
Yeah.
But we can now, since we don't see anything here, let's look at the catalog, the family search
Okay,
catalog,
yeah. Okay.
and
So
see if there are any church records there. And that's really that's the United Church of Christ, but way too late also.
okay.
So, it's interesting. I'm used to researching in the Eastern states, and their church records always go way back.
Yeah, interesting. No church records
Okay.
that I can see.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I guess is it worth checking the wiki just in case on Stanton?
Yeah, let's just see what it
Okay.
says.
Oh yeah, they're so close right there.
Doesn't really look like.
Yeah, that does not look.
Let's click that.
Looks
Yeah, let's click that Nebraska church records.
okay.
So there are some indexes, marriages. I'm not seeing anything
Oh,
about
okay.
Methodist churches here.
Yeah. Okay. And if I search on page for Methodist.
Oh, there we go. So they do have archives, but it doesn't really say anything about availability of records here or anything. So, like I said, these are things that someone could do if they really wanted to find out more and find a death for him. But in our time today, we can just say if someone wanted to, they could find out what they could write to the archives or contact them and see what records they might have for that
Okay.
area.
So we could say good. Well, I'm glad you thought of that because when I mean, it didn't click for me, but it clicked for you that we're looking at Jesse. She says Methodist, and boom, we could take that back. So I'm glad you thought of that.
That's one thing when you are researching people, it does help sometimes. Well, a lot of times it helps to look at the family members just to see what clues you can get. So
Very cool. Okay.
you want to go back to your descendancy chart and see?
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to here.
Let's look at these NIDA.
What do we have for her? We have a 1880 census again.
Now let's look at that and see. So she was an infant. She was 0, the youngest in the family. Okay, so we've found someone to research. We're looking now at her one source. So she lives with her parents, Marshall and Emily.
I like what you did before, going to the father or the parents to look at their
just to see what the next
census.
And she lives in that period where she could have been married by the time the 1900 census came around.
Yeah, that's tricky, isn't it? So
yeah,
she
but
could have.
it doesn't mean we can't find her. We can look and see. Oh, look at that. Go back to that details. 10 children were born to Marshall and Emily. 7 died in infancy. So let's look at their children here now, and let's see.
Okay, good catch.
It says 5 children here. We've got
those 2 lived a long time. Those 3.
Yes. So I wonder if all the rest of their children died. But it's interesting. There's only 2. I mean, their children aren't all listed here, obviously, but they might have been born between censuses and stuff. You have a good family that's been researched quite a bit.
It's good. Well, well, thank you. Yeah, not thanks to me, but this is fun to get in here and look for holes and look for next opportunities.
Yeah. So with this person, if you wanted to, it looks like, do we have the census records? When did this couple get married? 1861. So we do have the 1870 probably census for them.
Mm-hmm.
How many kids were there on the 1870? So we had William, Grandison, and Sarah. Are all of those on the tree already?
And let's go to William, Grandison, and Sarah. William, Grandison, Sarah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then in 1880, it looks like we probably had the other. Emily.
So Nida was now the 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4. And she's number 4. And then that male, sorry to be back and forth so much. The male apparently came in 1882.
And they live in Iowa. Are there state censuses in Iowa? I would maybe next look at a state census.
I'll have to get that.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself and not telling you that.
Oh yeah, tell me. I should put them all here. So tell me the MILY.
Map and timeline is the next
map
one.
and timeline.
And then I is instant records. So any record
All
hints or that
right.
quick look at.
And
And
then
then the
L is
last is look for additional
look for.
records. That's where we'll go to the wiki and the
Okay.
catalog. And then Y is just yay, you did it. Yeah, I don't
Oh,
know. You
nice.
did it.
Okay.
You did it.
Good. I like that.
We have to celebrate, right?
We got to celebrate. That's good. Good. Okay. So we are on, we just did analyze.
Yes.
Oh, and you were
So
saying, was there an Iowa census?
yeah. So what we need to do, let's just look and see. I didn't see any record hints for this family. Let's just look and see if there are. There are not record hints there in the top. We could just do a quick family search, but with Marshall having 33 sources already, I'm guessing maybe we've probably caught some of the easier records. We haven't really analyzed all we haven't looked at all the records for Marshall. So do we have any additional sources that might show some of his other children or anything like that, or death records? Where are the
Oh, good point.
records
So,
coming from for him? So we've got some birth records. So that's an infant. That might be that one.
oh, 82. Yeah. I think that was the infant
Youngest infant.
boy.
So we've already got him on the
Yeah.
tree. So if we keep scrolling down, what other records do we see for him? So there were state censuses at some point, at least in 1915, there was a state census. I wonder how early they started.
Oh, yeah. And I do have, this is, I'll pull up the subway map here to see if this helps me, but it's, let me pull, it gets a little messy here, but what if I go to state and hints? So I put in the subway map, I put the state censuses. And
Oh,
so
good.
it's got, it's saying 1905, 95,
Okay,
85.
let's look at those. Because we don't have the 1885 state census, do we?
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, great. That's
So let's look at
perfect.
that, because that might catch any of those other children, if it names children. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah. Okay, so we're looking for Hazelton, MD.
So we've got his wife there. Oh, that writing is so fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it looks like
I'm
we have a 19, a 16, and a 14-year-old.
okay.
So,
And we're 85, and we're
oh, it's
looking
like
at
its initials. So it looks like it's WW, GD, and SM. So that's probably the same.
you read that better than I did. You said that one was
WW. I
WW,
cheated.
JD, and SM.
I looked below to see what
Oh, okay,
somebody.
nice. Oh yeah, so WW, GD, and
SM.
SM. And
So
there's
in
no NIDA.
1885, they didn't
Yeah.
have additional children, but you could attach that to the family if you wanted to. Go ahead. It's not giving me.
Yeah, I should. I should. And they're all separate records, aren't they? I guess they aren't listed as a family, apparently. I mean, at least they're not here. I could come back to those to not take your time, but I'll keep those in open tabs and then come
Yeah, then you can attach
back to those.
So let's just check then the 1895 census on your.
Okay, then we'll go there. Nothing there for Marshall D. And I could take out the year range just in case that's a factor, which is weird because I guess we think he's in 1900. He's still in Adams County, Iowa.
So the indexing, it might have indexed it wrong or something, I don't know.
And then, yeah, I'll just 1895 or 1905. I'll check too. Oh, that's an interesting census.
Yeah. So it just has his name, his address, place of birth. I haven't ever seen anything like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Occupation is farmer. Has his military service. That's cool. That's a good clue for other research for him.
Oh, yeah. Good point. I wonder if I go to the next page, if it's got the family, or if they're just going to be all out of order. Amelia.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Amelia Hazelton.
So that's probably his wife, right? What was his wife's name?
Yeah. Emma, Jane, Emily. Yeah. Okay.
So it has a separate page for each person.
Separate page. That's so interesting. Yeah. And there's GD. Okay. And here's Ida.
Who's Ida?
And who's Ida and Lyman? Ida Lyman. Makes me wonder if they're just kind of in order by alphabetical and not.
They're not necessarily in alphabetical order. Yeah.
Okay.
They might have been neighbors. We could look at their.
Maybe neighbors.
Anyway, so that's something you could attach.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
See,
okay. That's a good one to attach.
So those censuses didn't give us any more clues. We just know that they did have a number of children. We haven't found all their children in the tree.
Was it 1885 where we found the family in the census,
Yep.
but not her date of death? And what would you put, a between or a before?
I would say between, yeah.
Between. Yeah, that feels good to kind of get to the bottom of, we haven't found anything about her, but we found something in, I guess, roundabout about
Yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We know that she was probably one of those 7 children of this family that passed away, which is so sad that they lost so many of
Yeah.
them.
It's a lot to lose. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
good.
So
Okay. So I've got
that's
some records to attach. Yeah.
yes, yes. So we've kind of talked briefly about every one of the steps, that we take. We could keep going and looking for death records in Iowa if you wanted to for the look for additional records step. Again, it's probably going to be, I don't know when death registers started, but they might have started.
Oh, cool.
Deaths 1880, statewide registration in 1880.
Oh,
So there's a
okay. So,
chance that we could find that. So we can here, since we're specifically looking for, we don't really need to go back to the record finder. It tells us a bunch of
okay.
different places that we can look for death records. So I see that Iowa County death records 1880 to 1992. Why
Okay.
don't we try that?
Do a new tab on that one. Their last name gets spelled so many different ways. This name is.
There's really nothing for her there.
Hmm.
What if we search? I'm just interested because the family did live in Iowa for the rest of their life, it looked like, right? So let's just do a search with just the last name and no first name, and then put in the parent names and see if it will pick up
Oh,
any
cool.
other
Good,
kids.
good thought. That's a really cool thought.
So this is interesting. Maybe we need to put a year, like a death year range. Let's just do like 1860 to maybe 1900, just to,
Oh, yeah. So kind of any of the
because the
children they
couple
might
got
have
married in
had.
1861, so it would pick up any children that were born in the first long time of their marriage. Um, so it's interesting, it doesn't have parents listed on these records. So that's probably not going to be super helpful for us if it doesn't give us a connection to a parent.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I
Um,
don't see any parents' names.
Click on one just to see if it does have parents listed on it, because then
Okay.
if we saw an infant in the right place, we could look at
Yeah.
that. Wow, it really doesn't name their
Yeah,
parents.
that's too bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is too bad. So we're probably not going to get a lot of help from the death records, I guess. So has it tracked that? Do you have any?
Did I keep it on? I think I did
Yeah.
keep it on. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. So we could say that under like that, those results were bad, those ones.
And on the Iowa County death
And
records, you could even put a comment that just says the death records for this time period didn't name their parents or something if you wanted just to.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. So that's really good to know. And then
So now you've learned a few things about,
1880.
about a few different families here. You've learned that there were, you learned that some of the children died. You've ruled out that they might have been married and had children. We haven't found anybody new to add to the tree yet, which is always the goal, to find more family members. But I don't know. How do you feel? How do
Yeah, it's
you
fun.
feel?
I felt great about that. Yeah. So I think maybe my, one thing I'll remember for the future is that this family had 7 children we read. And so, maybe I can look one more time for some other way for those other 2 children. Or
I think they had 10. Didn't they have
did I
10?
say that wrong? Yeah. Let's see. Was it?
10 children were born
Well,
to
7
Marsh
died in
and
infancy.
7 died
Yeah,
in
you're
infancy.
right.
Yeah.
That gives me a nice thing to work on for them.
Yeah. And so that's where this was a different family. So that's where you could maybe go and look for church records again, or different things that might exist that could name more of those children. Did we look at cemetery records for this family?
We didn't know.
So that's where, if people aren't sure what kinds of records might name the kids, I'm just saying this because I know what kinds might name the kids, but they could go to the record finder to see what types of records might name children, or death records, that kind of
So that's
thing.
one of the categories. Oh, yes. Is it
Yep.
that one?
Yep, parents, children, and
Okay.
spouses. So we've kind of looked at
Yeah.
census records, but there are obviously probate records. They wouldn't have been named in their father's wills if they were already dead. If they died as infants, they wouldn't be named in a will, but there could be church records. I think what might be my next church and cemetery records would probably be my next thing to look at for the deaths and relationships of children to parents here. So I do like the record finder, especially for people who maybe haven't worked with records as much and they're not sure where to look for different things. So it looks like there are some broader church record categories in Iowa. We got that Iowa church records 1839 2004. So you could check you could check that. If you could pin down a religion by looking at some of the other family members' profile pages, then you could maybe go down to some of these other denominations and see what records are extant for that religion, if you can pin down a religion, rather than just trying to
Okay.
go look at every single denomination's church records
Yeah.
pinned
Okay.
down.
Wow, cool. All right. Yeah, this gives me a lot to work on and move forward on. And you're right. It's funny how we get a bunch of tabs open as we're going.
Yeah. It's interesting because sometimes when you do this, looking at the descendants, you find people right away. Other times it's more like this, where you learn things about people and, okay, this person died, so we can't find anything else about them. But it does give you a place to research if you aren't sure where you want to research.
Cool. And then on your website, alicechilds.com, you've got this Research 101 course and you have videos for each of these sections, don't you?
Yeah, I do. For each of the letters in family, I have a video that walks you through the process of what you need to do for that.
And what's your video about for the Y and yay?
I just have them go back. So let's go back to the one of your people's profile pages.
Okay.
I just like to look and see what you've accomplished. So I go back to the timeline. So on the example that I used, I added a few different items. And so the timeline was more filled out and we had more things on the map that they could look
Oh,
at.
okay.
And then I also like, have you looked at the new person page?
Yeah, I have. I've looked at it a little bit. Yeah.
So go
So,
to that. I just like to point out that there is a little spot here on the about page. So you need to go. So
okay.
this is the new page. And I like to point out that you do have a timeline on the right-hand side, but on the left,
Yeah.
I like the life summary that automatically populates as you start adding more people to the family. So in my example,
Okay.
we had a person who wasn't married and didn't have siblings. And so there was not a lot there on his life summary. It just said he was born here, or whatever. And then
Yeah.
after we worked, it writes a little automatic life summary for this person here. So I think that's kind of cool. A cool way to celebrate that you've accomplished
That
something
is cool. Yeah.
to their
Yeah.
story.
That's cool. We haven't on with the Goldie Mae research log, we haven't taken any screenshots, but now you're making me think I could take a screenshot of this page before I start researching and
Oh
then
yeah.
an after and compare. That's cool to think about. What have I accomplished in this research
Yeah.
session? Because here's where it was. And then,
Yeah. So if you went back to the one person, it would show then the first one we worked on where we
so we
found
did.
that they died as an infant. It would then show on the timeline, it would show their death. And then on the little summary, it would then say that they died.
Yeah, we didn't have a death date before, did we? So
Yeah.
we,
Yeah. And so then
okay.
over in the life summary, you can see he lived in Almaty Township, Dakota, Nebraska in 1870 and Wayne later in 1870. And then he died between 1870 and 1880 at the age of 14. So
Yeah, that's cool because that fills in more detail than we didn't have.
yeah, so that's what I like to tell people, you have accomplished something. You've learned a few things. Even if you didn't find more people to add to the tree, you did find out more about him and that he did die as a young person and didn't live a long life. And so it does get added to his life summary, which is pretty cool, I think.
That is cool. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you take the time to celebrate in your research.
Well, I think sometimes we get frustrated because like, oh, I didn't find anything. Oh, I didn't find anything. But you need to take a minute and say, okay, I did actually accomplish something here.
I like that reflection. Yeah. Good. Well, Alice, this is awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to go through several family members with me and showing your process.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. It's fun to be here.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.